Hello. I'm a little sneezy today. I'm hoping it's because it just got hot in San Diego, and not because I have the coronavirus. That would be best. But I guess that's going to be soon to be seen. I hope. I think that's right. Not sure, though. Not sure. Yep, don't know. Hot couture. Yeah, so hopefully, I'm probably going to sneeze a couple times because I've been sneezing and talking. Vibrates my schnoz. And that is that on that. And that is all I'm going to talk about my nose today. Well, it's a little sleepy. Hachoo. My brother has started sneezing the same way my dad sneezes. My dad has one of those, like, big sneezes, like scream sneezes. Very upsetting. But now my brother has started doing the big boy scream sneezes. And that's upsetting to me as well, because I'm like, you don't have to live like this. We don't have to live in fear of you sneezing. But you insist on asserting your dominance with an incredibly loud scream sneeze. Like, 3 can play this game, because I can do it too, but I choose not to. Yes, Shiv, I was just thinking of the, like, assertive sneezes, the different types of sneezes that Pierce has. I just started watching Community. So that's what exactly, I was like, I could reference that, but, like, I shouldn't. And then look at that. How beautiful. Let's see what's happening. Nothing. That's not true. Lots is happening. Okay, enough of me. Let's do our last set of How to Be an Anti-Racist quotes, because I finished the book, and I am starting on, it's over there. I haven't started it yet, but I'm going to. I dropped something important. I'm starting today, White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism, sorry. And it's by Robin DiAngelo, and I'm excited to read it. But yeah, today's our last set of How to Be an Anti-Racist quotes. If you want this book to read it, I have 3 people in line right now. But let me know. I will deliver it to you if I can in any way, as long as you promise to deliver it to somebody else. So our last, oh my gosh, I don't have a bookmark in here. How sad. Okay, it's a big, there's a big quote and then a small quote. Oh, wait, White Fragility or How to Be an Anti-Racist? I'm intrigued. Tell me more. I'm very intrigued by this, but interesting. Okay. I would love to hear more about that if you were down to share. You don't have to share here. I'll message you about it later. But okay. I'm very intrigued, because I saw it on a lot of reading lists, and I was like, yeah. But now I'm like, question mark? So yeah, I'll look into that. Interesting. All right. Here is our big boy last quote. It's just big. It's very large. From How to Be an Anti-Racist. Our world is suffering from metastatic cancer, stage 4. Racism has spread to nearly every part of the body politic, intersecting with bigotry of all kinds, justifying all kinds of inequities by victim blaming, heightening exploitation and misplaced hate, spurring mass shootings, arms races, and demagogues who polarize nations, shutting down essential organs of democracy, and threatening the life of human society with nuclear war and climate change. In the United States, the metastatic cancer has been spreading, contracting, and threatening to kill the American body, as it nearly did before its birth, as it nearly did during its Civil War. But how many people stare inside the body of their nation's racial inequities, their neighborhood's racial inequities, their occupation's racial inequities, their institution's racial inequities, and flatly deny that their policies are racist? They flatly deny that the racial inequity is the signpost of racist policy. They flatly deny the racist policy they use racist ideas to justify the racial inequity. They flatly deny the cancer of racism as the cancer cells spread and literally threaten their own lives and the lives of the people and spaces and places they hold dear. The popular conception of denial, like the popular strategy of suasion, is suicidal. So that's one of our biggest quotes from that book. So Shiv, I also don't want you to have to be my researcher on this book. I'll obviously do my own research on white fragility as well. But thank you for pointing that out. I'm excited and intrigued to see what is up with that book. Okay, I am going to start our reading for Wuthering Heights today. I'm just why does the heat make my schnoz run so? Why can I not simply take a sip of water? Okay, I'll do my research. Okay, yesterday in Wuthering Heights, our boy Mr. Lockwood was like, I need to know more about this situation because something's going on here and I need to know it. So I'm going to ask one of my servants and we will see what is up. Hopefully she is a gossip, which is exactly what he is. Interesting. Just read it with some kind of seasoning. I love to hear it. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Okay, so he's like, I hope she is a gossip, for I desperately want to know everything about this family, who I have little business with, except for the fact that he is my landlord. So he gets his servant, and his servant's like, yeah, so I actually was super close with the family for a really long time. I think the pages will be fine. So she was really close with the family for a really long time. And essentially she nursed baby Kathy, because there's two Kathys now. Heathcliff's daughter-in-law is also a Kathy, but she's Kathy Linton. We're talking about Kathy Earnshaw. Kathy Earnshaw had a brother, Hindley. So she and Hindley were close, and then one day Kathy's dad went to town for some reason. Instead of coming back with the things he needs, he essentially abducts a child. He's on the streets, and there's this kid, and he's like, where's your family? And the kid's like, I don't know. And the guy's like, okay, I guess I'm gonna carry you all 60 miles back to my house. So they do, and then of course, the family's like, you did what? You adopted a who? And so the maid who we're talking to, I forget what her name is, she is like, sorry to say that I was mean to this kid, and so was Hindley, but Heathcliff, who they named the child, this is the full name. He has no other beginning or end name. That's right. Heathcliff is his full name. I'm not doing good with the summary today. Sometimes I really do good with the summaries. Not today. Today is not that day. So basically, everybody's mean to Heathcliff, which of course makes Heathcliff figure out his own stuff and how to be mean back. And so it's just creating this endless cycle of meanness. And nothing very much happened except for establishing an endless cycle of meanness, which is how bad things start. All right. This is still, I believe, The Maid's Tale. Oh, very short chapter today. Okay. In the course of time, Mr. Earnshaw began to fail. He had been active and healthy, yet his strength left him suddenly, and when he was confined to the chimney corner, he grew grievously irritable. And nothing vexed him, and suspected slights of his authority nearly threw him into fits. This was especially to be remarked if any one attempted to impose upon or domineer over his favorite. He was painfully jealous lest a word should be spoken amiss to him, seeming to have got into his head the notion that, because he liked Heathcliff, all hated and longed to do him an ill turn. It was a disadvantage to the lad, for the kinder among us did not wish to fret the master, so we humored his partiality, and that humoring was rich nourishment to the child's pride and black tempers. We don't love that. Still it became in a manner necessary, twice or thrice, Hindley's manifestations of scorn, while his father was near, roused the old man to a fury. Oh God. He seized his stick to strike him, and shook with rage that he could not do it. At last we had a curate then, who made the living answer by teaching the little Lintons and Earnshaws, and farming his bits of land himself. He advised that the young man should be sent to college, and Mr. Earnshaw agreed, though with a heavy spirit, for he said, Hindley was not, and would never thrive as where he wandered. I hoped heartily that we should have peace now. It hurt me to think that the master should be made uncomfortable by his own good deed. I fancied the discontent of age and disease arose from his family disagreements, as he would have it that it did. Really, you know, sir, it was in his sinking frame. We might have got on tolerably, notwithstanding, but for two people, Miss Cathy and Joseph, the servant. You saw him, I dare say, up yonder. He was, and is yet most likely, the wearisomest, self-righteous Pharisee that ever ransacked a Bible to rake the promises to himself and fling the curses on his neighbors. That's really interesting. What a phrase. Okay. By his knack of sermonizing and pious discoursing, he contrived to make a great impression on Mr. Earnshaw. And the more feeble the master became, the more influence he gained. He was relentless in worrying him about his soul's concerns and about ruling his children rigidly. He encouraged him to hear Hindley as a reprobate, and night after night he regularly grumbled out a long string of tales against Heathcliff and Catherine, always minding to flatter Earnshaw's weakness by heaping the heaviest blame on the last. Who is this? Oh, so Joseph is gaining influence on the dad. Okay. Certainly. She had ways with her such as I never saw a child take up before. But she put all of us past our patience 50 times oftener in a day, from the hour she came downstairs till the hour she went to bed, and we had not a minute's security that she wouldn't be in mischief. Her spirits were always at a high water mark, her tongue was always going, singing, laughing, and plaguing everybody who would not do the same. A wild wick-slip she was, but she had the bonniest eye and sweetest smile and lightest foot in the parish. And after all, I believe she meant no harm, for when she once made you cry in good earnest, it seldom happened that she would not keep you company, and oblige you to be quiet, that you might comfort her. She was much too fond of Heathcliff. The greatest punishment we could invent for her was to keep her separate from him, yet she got chided more than any of us on his account. In play she liked exceedingly to act the little mistress, using her hands freely and commanding her companions. She did so to me, but I would not bear slapping and ordering, and so I let her know. Now Mr. Earnshaw did not understand jokes from his children. He had always been strict and grave with them, and Catherine, on her part, had no idea why her father should be crosser and less patient in his ailing condition than he was in his prime. His peevish reproofs wakened in her a naughty delight to provoke him. She was never so happy as when we were all scolding her at once, and she defying us with her bold, saucy look and her ready words, turning Joseph's religious curses into ridicule, baiting me and doing just what her father hated most, showing how her pretended insolence, which he thought real, had more power over Heathcliff than his kindness. How the boy would do her bidding in anything, and his only when it suited his own inclination. After behaving as badly as possible all day, she sometimes came fondling to make it up at night. Nay, Kathy, the old man would say, I cannot love thee. Thou art worse than thy brother. Go, say thy prayers, child, and ask God's pardon. I doubt thy mother, and I must rue whatever reared thee. Good Lord, what an awful thing to say to a kid. This is just not it. Oh, God. That made her, I fear, that made her cry at first, and then, being repulsed continually, hardened her, and she laughed if I told her to say she was sorry for her faults, and to beg to be forgiven. But the hour came at last that ended Mr. Earnshaw's troubles on earth. He died quietly in his chair one October evening, seated by the fireside. A high wind blustered round the house and roared in the chimney. It sounded wild and stormy, yet it was not cold, and we were all together. I, a little removed from the hearth, busy at my knitting, and Joseph reading his Bible near the table. For the servants generally sat in the house then, after their work was done. Miss... Thank you. I had tea this morning because I was like, oh, girl, you gotta drink some tea. But then I accidentally drank like the super caffeinated tea, which smells really good, but it's super caffeinated. And if anything's like too caffeinated, I get really bad anxiety. So I've just been on that like anxiety train all day of my body being like, something's happening. And I'm like, nothing's happening. Calm down. I'm washing the dog. And it's like, something's happening. And I'm like, no, girl. Oh, no. Okay. Well, this is a series of unfortunate events for my body. Okay. Okay. But the hour came at last that ended Mr. Earnshaw's troubles on earth. He died quietly in his chair one October evening, seated by the fire. A high wind blustered round the house and roared in the chimney. It sounded wild and stormy, yet it was not cold, and we were all together. I, a little removed from the hearth, busy at my knitting, and Joseph reading his Bible near the table. For the servants generally sat in the house then, after their work was done. Miss Kathy had been sick, and that made her still. She leant against her father's knee, and Heathcliff was lying on the floor with his head in her lap. How old are they right now? Not that it matters, I'm just wondering. I remember the master, before he fell into a doze, stroking her bonny hair. It pleased him rarely to see her gentle, and saying, Why canst thou not always be a good lass, Kathy? And she turned her face up to his and laughed and answered, Why cannot you always be a good man, father? But as soon as she saw him vexed again, she kissed his hand and said she would sing him to sleep. She began singing very low till his fingers dropped from hers, and his head sunk on his breast. Then I told her to hush and not to stir, for fear she should wake him. We all kept as mute as mice a full half hour, and should have done longer, only Joseph, having finished his chapter, got up and said that he must rouse the master for prayers and bed. He stepped forward and called him by name, and touched his shoulder, but he would not move. So we took the candle and looked at him. I thought there was something wrong as he set down the light, and seizing the children, each by an arm, whispered to them, Frame, upstairs, and make a little din. They might pray alone that evening. He had somewhat to do. I shall bid father good night first, said Catherine, putting her arm round his neck before we could hinder her. The poor thing discovered her loss directly. She screamed out, Oh, he's dead, Heathcliff, he's dead! And they both set up a heartbreaking cry. I joined my wail to theirs, loud and bitter, but Joseph asked what we could be thinking of to roar in that way over a saint in heaven. He told me to put on my cloak and run to Gimmerton for the doctor and the parson. I could not guess the use that either would be of then. However, I went through wind and rain and brought one, the doctor, back with me. The other said he would come in the morning. Leaving Joseph to explain matters, I ran to the children's room. Their door was ajar. I saw they had never laid down, though it was past midnight, but they were calmer and did not need me to console them. The little souls were comforting each other with their better thoughts than I could have hit on. No parson in the world ever pictured heaven so beautifully as they did in their innocent talk, and while I sobbed and listened, I could not help wishing we were all there safe together. Woof. Oh boy. Okay, well okay. Tomorrow's a longer chapter, so I will leave it there today. Excuse me. Ooh. Oh. All right. Another thrilling chapter. It's very, I'm honestly like, I think it's the most cinematic out of all the books that we've read so far. I'm going back. Age of Innocence was very like, I don't know. Age of Innocence was very, well, I'm sure they're not going to pass the pass the property to a woman. So it's either him or Hindley. So I don't know. Age of Innocence was very like heady and thoughtful. Frankenstein was super thoughtful, like just like thoughts all over the place. What was the other one? Sense and Sensibility. Is very talk based, and Sense and Sensibility, like the works of Jane Austen, are great plays because there's not too many settings. House talk. They all have house talk. So, Age of Innocence, and surprisingly, not as much house talk from a book named after a house. Interesting. Yeah, I think so far, yes. I don't know. I like all of them for different things. I didn't love Frankenstein. Yeah, the setting is very interesting. Okay, so with that, I will give us the last quote that I have selected from How to Be an Antiracist, if I can find it. I gave it to my mom, so she's going to read it next. But I can tell she hasn't read her first chapter yet, which is fine. She has 12 hours. Okay. When it comes to healing America of racism, we want to heal America without pain. But without pain, there is no progress. And that's the last thought I'll leave you with from this book. All right, I'm off to do some research about white fragility because that's right, yeah. Because I want to know. Okie dokios. I will see you all tomorrow at 3 o'clock for the continuation of Wuthering Heights. And hopefully the finale of me feeling weird because it's hot out. Okay, I'm going to go drink some water. Bye! See y'all soon. Thanks for tuning in.